So we're going to continue today on our soul journey. And this week we're talking about dance. Last week I gave you an outline, and I'll tell you that it's Reverend Charlene, I always call her Reverend Charlene. She wrote this book called The Metaphysics of Shoes. Great book, having so much fun reading it. I've had it for a while, and welcome. Good to see you. And it talks about the steps we take on this extraordinary soul journey. Soul from our hearts and soul from our feet. And she talks about shoes as that journey. And she says we probably wonder why we never talk about shoes that much, because people kind of say, well, really? That's your preference. I'm not interested in shoes. But each of us are on a journey. And what we put on our feet gets us to where we need to go every day. My brother, for the longest time, said he liked to feel the earth on his feet. And he was barefooted for the longest time. I remember he'll go to meetings at Excel and all these places. But because he was 6'4" and his pants were long, nobody knew he didn't have shoes on. And we would say, Eugene, put some shoes on your feet. You can get further. And it took him a while until he got married to put shoes on. But he was barefooted because he liked to feel the earth on his feet, and it never stopped him from getting where he had to go, other than some summer days when the heat used to burn the soles of his feet. But now he wears shoes and dressed all that. But talking about our journeys, and each of us do it different ways. And Reverend Charlene wrote this book from where she thought about shoes when somebody asked her why she liked shoes so much. And many women in particular really like shoes, but there are men who like them as well. And metaphysically, she said, you would ask, why would you say the metaphysics of shoes? But metaphysics, as we know, is a philosophy that deals with the realm of ideas, thoughts, and mind. Ideas, thoughts, and mind. And yes, the spectrum of soul up here and the soul at the bottom of our feet are two different areas, but we are all one. This is what happens with our feet affects the top part of our body no matter what. When your feet hurt, you sit down. And your mind focuses on my foot hurt. I was at the grocery store, Lindo's, yesterday, and a guy was trucking out who does all the vegetables. He says, I broke my toe. And people are like, oh my goodness, what do you do? And he says, I'm trucking along. And he kept going, but his focus was on his toe that was hurting. And for all of us, a lot of times we can hurt our finger, we can hurt so many other things, but when our feet hurt, it affects all of us. Because that's what carries us on our soul journey. So metaphysics allows us to look behind the stories in our lives to find that deeper message, that metaphysical view. And we find life empowering ideas as we walk on our soul journey. So today we're going to talk about Let's Dance. And this one's about a movement. And the story she gives this time, and each chapter talks about gives a story about how we got there. And there's this young lady who is going through a divorce. She'd been married for 8 years, but her husband had lied and had affairs and all of these different things. And she was going through this, and all these changes were taking place in her life. Because when she had married for life, and her heart was connected. And metaphysically, we say marriage is said represented a union of two dominant states of consciousness, male, female, and each person brings their own story to that union. And her story was still connected to those marriage vows. His had changed, and so they were moving on in life. And the attorney at the end of her divorce settlement said to her, find a hobby. Find something to do. Don't wallow in this, because I've been there. I was married before and been through a divorce, but I actually met my husband, who I'm still married to, 3 weeks after I got divorced, and it has changed my life. Find a hobby. Get out of the house. And we know most of us, when something goes wrong, what do? We wallow in it, and we stay home, and it takes us a while. So for her, for 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, she went home every day after work and cried. And every morning when she woke up, she cried. because she had all those memories that she lived through. You know, when she came home, her husband was sitting on the couch and say, "What's for dinner?" Even though it irritated her, he was there. And in the morning, when she got up, he was there. "You getting breakfast ready?" It irritated her, but it was okay. He was her husband, and she had vowed to love him. And so she cried each morning. She kept it private. She went to work every day and everything, and every day she did this. Until the last bill came from the attorney, and she told us she was sending that bill. The attorney had written a note in there and said, "Have you gotten that hubby yet? Don't stay home, get out." And she looked at that note, and she looked at the amount on the bill. She said, as we know, attorney bills. And she thought about what she said, and she's like, "Well, what can I do?" She says, "Well, I used to dance, but I don't dance anymore." And she says, "I can't just go start dancing again. I haven't danced for 8 years, really?" But it got her thinking. And so the next morning when she got up, she felt this shift within her, and she looked at her sad face in the mirror, and she says, "I could do this. I could dance again. I'm still young. What stops me from dancing? What stops me from going forward? I used to do jazz and tap and ballet from the age of 4, 6 times a week." And her husband was the one that encouraged her to stop dancing because he wanted to get a better job to pay for more money for the dream house that she now lives in by herself. And she says, "Wait a minute. That's a part of me that made me feel confident, made me feel alive. And I'm sitting here in this house, wallowing in this pain. But it's time for me to make a shift." And we all go through those moments in our lives when we have challenges, when the aha moment comes. When we stop and we think, I need to move to the next step in my life. I need to move on. And she was thinking about this dance studio that she passed many times along the street, and she never went in because she didn't have time. It was on her way to get the coffee on the way to work, but she never stopped in. So the next day she got up, after she thought about this, and she looked in this mirror, and she decided, "I'm not going to work today. I'm going to find my hobby." Now to me, that's God calling you. You could call it a hobby, you could call it whatever you want, but it's that nudge that God gives each and every one of us. And for her, and we know God is just the name that we give it, it's that essence within her. And that's what spurred her on to get up and go, to stop crying each morning and each night, to find a way to find her truth. She had to let go and let God and erase or deny all of those things that were stopping her from fulfilling the dreams of her life. So she chose to let's dance. And as it says in Songs of Solomon, "How beautiful are they that are thy feet with shoes, O prince daughter. Get up and dance." In life challenges and as life changes, we have many things that hold us down. And for her, the crying from the divorce held her down. And as it says in Psalm 35:11, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." You may have turned for me by morning. You have turned for me my morning into dancing. I'll say that one again. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And Ecclesiastes 3:4 says, "A time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance." And the other one I found was Jeremiah 31:13. It says, "The young women will dance and be glad, young men and old as well. And I will turn their mourning into gladness. I will give them comfort and joy instead of sorrow." So let's dance. Let's shift and move our life We are given directions from the Bible. We are given directions from those nudges. We're given directions from the Christ presence that's within us all the time. So what are the soul thoughts that we get from this story? Things change in life. We didn't plan for them and we didn't hope for them. For her, she didn't expect a divorce. But we lose friendships. There's deaths in our families. We lose jobs. We're failed businesses. They're all painful. And we move through them. I was at my Aunt Ann's funeral this week, and it was another celebration. She was 86 years old. She knew she was sick, refused to go to the doctor. She was riddled with cancer, but she was 86 years old. She didn't want to go to no hospital or no doctors or anything else where they're going to tell her sick. She loved her home, and she wanted to be in her home, and her daughter lived there with her husband. And so it wasn't until she passed out and they had to take her to the hospital that they found out fully that she had cancer. But by that time they said to her, take her back home. There's nothing we can do. But my Aunt Ann lived a full life. She had many ups and downs. Her husband died in 1979. Her two daughters went through a whole lot, and her son. But she had one granddaughter from her son. But now she had 4 grandchildren. And they were giving her life. And that's what was keeping her going, even though she knew she was sick all that time. She didn't want to miss out on them by going in the hospital or taking treatments. She stayed and enjoyed her 4 great-grandchildren. But that's what happens when life gives us challenges. But we always journey back from tough times. And this begins with a good mental and emotional cleansing, and tears do that. Sometimes we're afraid, like this young lady, she only cried at home in the morning and at night. When she went to work, she held up the strong face. She didn't go out with her friends because she didn't want to cry in front of anybody. And many of us are like that. But crying for many of us is a releasing. It allows us to let go and to shift our emotions and cleanse our souls. Other ways that we can cleanse our souls is through journaling, prayer, and in Unity we know about meditation. Because these are catalysts to heal ourselves from any disappointment. But also joy, also crying, can be joyful, right? I go to the movies and it's a sad movie and I'm crying and laughing at the same time because it was such a good experience. But it's good. And when it's an experience that brings tears to our eyes and pain, it allows us to let go. So as it says in Revelations 21:4, He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. For the old order of things have passed away. So look at that crying as a cleansing point in our life. It allows us to be restored and rejuvenated. And when we are restored and we allow that restoration to take place in our lives, it awakens our imagination. It is an opportunity to enter into the spirit of how to make us whole and to harmonize all discord in our life. That's what the rejuvenation of crying does. And a dawning of a new day takes place. Right? Like her, she got up in the morning, she looked in that mirror, like I always put the picture up of the lion, the cat looking in the mirror, seeing a lion. The dawning of a new day arose within her, and she looked in that mirror, and she saw that sad face, and she was determined to shift that perception, to shift her life. Because we all survive that mental cleansing and allow our imaginations to be restored. So put on your dancing shoes. Get yourself out moving. God says, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your young man will see vision, and old man will dream dreams. Men or women, it's just open. Put on your dancing shoes and allow yourself to dream and your imagination to soar. So what this young lady did when she changed and she shifted that next morning, and she lifted herself out of the crying stage and she had that mental cleansing, she got up and she went looking for her old dancing shoes. She searched the house, she's like, where did I put them? You know, when we're living in a house for 8 years, we tuck things away and we put things on top of things and on top of things, and we're like, well, I haven't used them for 8 years, where could I have put them? So she went to the basement. And where is the basement? The basement is where we start our journey upwards. It's like our souls, the bottom of our feet is from the bottom up. We rise up. So she went to the basement of our soul, and she went to the basement of our house, and she searched through the boxes, and she found 3 boxes. She found the boxes, and then she opened the first one and opened the tissue where she had nicely wrapped her ballet shoes. And she opened them up and she put them up. And what happens? Her imagination soared, and she smiled because she remembers the great time she had. And the next box she opened were her tap shoes. And she remembers winning awards of doing tap when she was young. And her imagination remembered. And the next box she opened up was her jazz shoes. And she had done hip hop, and she had done all these things. And she looked at these 3 parts of her life that she had given up. And she had tucked those dreams away in the basement of her soul. And she realized that they could bring the joy that she thought she lost back into her soul. She had rescued them from inactivity. For dancing shoes represent the revival of dreams, stimulation of the imagination, and awakening creativity. Isn't it? We're moving every part of our body. We're hearing the music beat throughout our souls, and we start moving. And we feel the rejuvenation of our body. And as we get older, things might hurt, but we keep going, and we feel it. We reconnect with the joys and the dreams of that opportunity to dance and move with God and with our bodies again, and we put our hearts and our souls in it. But the nice thing about putting things away and getting them back out is they had no hard feelings. They were just waiting for you to come back to your dreams. Those shoes didn't get smaller, get bigger, get angry or anything because you put them in the basement of your soul. They waited for you to resurrect and to come back to the start of some of your dreams. They triggered you to awaken. They triggered you to start again with a new beginning. And you might not dance like you were when you're 6 and 7, but you're dancing anyway. And your mind will move you forward. And those unfulfilled dreams that you held in your soul are now coming forth. So pull out your old dancing shoes. So the extraordinary soul step, what is it? It's your imagination, and we have one of those as the faculties of mind that give shapes and power to any form. And it's that nerve center between our eyes and allows us to see and envision what we want in our lives. And it says here, dare to put your imagination toward reclaiming the dream that had been patiently waiting in the closet of your mind. That celebrate the joy of resurrecting your heart's passion and true desire. I'm going to say that again. Dare to put your imagination toward reclaiming the dream that had been patiently waiting in the closet of your mind. Then celebrate. Just celebrate the joy of resurrecting your heart's passion and true desire. We all have dreams. And some we've tucked away, some we've fulfilled, some we're still, working with, but we all have dreams. So dare to dream and allow your imagination to soar. So, she always ends with a section that says, if the shoe fits. That's what she calls it, if the shoe fits. Here's a couple of questions, and I'm opening up to you, and let me know, jump and brief. What challenges have you faced that inspired you to chart a new course for your life, revive an old dream, or imagine a new direction? Anybody have anything they would like to share? Anything that triggered a new change in your life? It's like those miracles we're still thinking about, that we know happened, but haven't come to mind. Well, I'll email these to you and you can think about them later if you don't think of anything. Another one is, what unfulfilled dreams do you have stored away in the closet of your mind, and why haven't you revived them? I danced when I was younger. All my life I danced. I don't dance anymore. And I remember going back to a dance class one time, and I looked at those younger people doing all the things I used to be able to do, and I didn't go back. And I really didn't go back. So I exercise in my home, because I guess you could call it their shame I can't do it like it is, but you know what? I enjoy doing it in my home. So in the beginning it was because I'm hiding out, but after that it was, I like doing it here. I can jump all over the place, make as much noise, and do what I want in my home, and I do my exercises there. And they were and I watch any dance show that comes from you, to any dance show on the TV. I'm fulfilling my dreams all the time by watching other people, and I watch them, especially So You Think You Can Dance in the summer. Oh, my heart soars when I watch those children dance. They are my dreams being fulfilled through someone else. So I have revived them. I haven't given them up. I just revive them in a different way. So think of something you might have plucked away and you always dreamed of doing and you never did, and it could be something you can revive just by watching a different show. You might not physically have to do it, but revive those dreams. Don't leave them stuck in the closet of your mind. The last thing you want to do when you lie in your transition is say, I wish I did. Live those dreams fully. And another one is, what is the connection between living your dreams and the expression of joy? That's a one to think about. What is the connection between living your dreams and the expression of joy? For that young lady, when she decided to pull those dancing shoes out of those boxes, she relived her dreams, and the joy was abound in her soul. She hadn't even danced a step yet, but joy rose up in her soul. Think of something, that connection in your life that brings up an expression of joy. Does anyone have anything they can share on any of these? You can stop me in any moment, but I'll send them to you so that you can think about them through the week. And the last one I'll put up is, what would be an extraordinary step forward in the use of your imagination at this time in your life? What would be an extraordinary step forward in the use of your imagination at this time in your life? As we talk about your soul journey, S-O-L-E, soul journey, and you got your dancing shoes on this time, what would it be?
I just think an extraordinary step would just to be think about things like this,
yes,
even get started.
Exactly, exactly. Because sometimes we just never thought. It's like when I asked for the smallest miracles, like everybody's thinking, but we know we had them.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same thing here. The extraordinary step starts the process. It gets it out of the valley or the basement of our soul, and it gets it from the soul at the bottom of our feet to the crown of our heads and into the nerve center between our eyes where imagination comes. Start that step and allow the extraordinary visions to take place in your life. Allow them to expand out from you, and watch yourself smile. And watch the joy and more joy rise up in your soul. And I'll end with Ecclesiastes 3:4. A time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. So let's dance, everyone. Release the challenges and enjoy the dance of life.